Hi, Eric from Arize. I'm excited to show you how to trace LLM function calls. Function calls enable LLMs to interact directly with external tools and APIs, and they're also very useful for returning structured outputs from LLMs. So their outputs can be used for tasks like summarization, classification, and text transformation in code. However, it's challenging to debug because there's complexity regarding how we use the multiple tools, unclear errors, and incorrect parameter handling. So Arize streamlines this process by logging chat history and function calls to the platform with just a single line of code, which you can see on the left with the line OpenAI instrumenter.instrument. Users can easily review function call traces in a human readable format for both the output and definition, load chats and calls into the prompt playground, and refine parameters to optimize those workflows. So let's look at an example workflow where you'd use function calling. Let's say you're building a customer support chatbot agent, and the customer can ask it a variety of different queries, such as what's the delivery date for my order, and you have your OpenAI LLM call classify as a router which prompt or which tool it should use, whether it should be going to search for your order details, or if it should be answering general queries with RAG, or a different tool or LLM prompt. Let's look at an example of this in the platform. So I'm going to open a simplified version of this using function calling, where on the right, you can see this customer support agent that I've built without the router template, where it's taking in user questions, and then it decides to call the get delivery date function, which returns a delivery date of October 23rd, 2025. So this makes it very easy to trace what happened with your conversation with your user. And then you can also look at the format of your function output. You can see, which functions did it actually use? It used the get delivery date function with order ID, order 12345. And you can also see the function definition, either as JSON or pretty format, as well as what was the call to use the function? Was it forced to use a function, or are we allowing the LLM to actually select it? So let's look at an example where you can actually iterate on using functions using prompt playground. So we're going to an earlier part of the chat thread where we want to test whether or not it actually calls the right function, where it's calling get delivery date here. So we're going to go to the prompt playground and then test the default state right here, where you can see each of the different user and system and assistant messages. And then you can see the function's definition at the bottom, where you can add or remove the functions. You can specify which function to use, whether it's required none or force get delivery date. And then you can specify your function's JSON. So let's run it just to make sure that it's outputting the correct output. Here you can see it's calling the get delivery date function with the right order ID, order underscore 12345. But let's say you wanted to change the available functions to add another function. So we're going to add a function get shipment date. We're going to specify the parameters here. So when the customer asks, when did my order ship, it should actually call the get shipment date function instead of the get delivery date function. When did my order ship? And let's see what happens. So here, actually, it now calls both functions, get delivery date with the order ID and get shipment date with the order ID. Now, this is a crude example where likely you might want to actually just have a function that gets order details and then spits that back out with both dates, and then the LLM can choose what to return to the user. But this is just a trivial example, so you could see how you can add or remove functions, how you can edit the descriptions, the name of the functions, the properties that are required, the types, as well as editing the messages up above to actually play around with function calling in Arize. So if you'd like to learn more, you can go to our docs, where you can click here to see more details of how we do tracing for function calls. You can follow along with the Google Colab tutorial, where we actually go through a full example for how do you trace OpenAI application, how do you define a callable function, how do you define your tools, and then sending messages to the chat completions call, and then tracing your application in Arize. So if you'd like to learn more about that, or if you'd like to learn about tracing an agent, you can find us here in the docs at docs.arize.com. We currently support OpenAI auto instrumentation for function calling, and we're looking to add more support for different providers to do this automatic instrumentation. You can also manually specify tool spans using the following tutorial here. Let's go look at an example of a tool call where when you are actually calling a specified tool, you can specify these attributes like the function name and the arguments JSON, so that way it'll show up correctly within Arize or whatever telemetry tool of your choice. Happy building!